Welcome to the Sunday worship service of the First Church in Boston, a Unitarian Universalist congregation in Back Bay. Today's service features Reverend Dr. Stephanie May, candidate minister for First Church. Her sermon is entitled, A Sustainable Future.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome, congregants, visitors, those online. Thank you. Thank you for your presence. Today is a glorious day outside, and it's also a quite glorious day for our church. For those of you who do not know me, I'm Fern Beck. I'm chair of the Standing Committee, which is the congregant-led governance of the society. Whether you're here in person or viewing us online, you are with us. To those of you who want to learn more about First Church or Unitarian Universalism, we are a friendly bunch. You can speak to anyone here or obviously go on our website. And we are always open for a call or a visit. It is my pleasure and honor today to welcome the Reverend Dr. Stephanie May, our candidate for minister, as she leads us in worship. Following the postlude, I will share with those of you staying for the vote more information about that. Do look at today's order of service for general announcements, and I guess today we are the announcement. So, thank you again for being here as we gather together for worship and fellowship.
Today, the First Church in Boston gathers, continuing a stream of Sundays spanning centuries of religious seekers. Today, the congregation comes together to consider a new chapter with a new minister. Today, friends and strangers show up to build for these moments a community of people of shared experience. On this day, may all feel that they belong here, now, as part of this church and its ongoing story of sustaining people through joys and strain of living and loving on this shared planet. Our opening hymn is number 63, Spring Has Now Unwrapped the Flowers. However, the tune is different than what's written in your hymnal. However, it is a very familiar tune, King Wenceslas. So, and of course, there's the fabulous choir that never lets us go astray. So, and please rise in body or in spirit to sing hymn 63. Please be seated. Thank you. Lighting the chalice, symbol of Unitarian Universalism, reminds us of our connection to the larger UU community. Today, our chalice lighting words come from UU scholar and minister Mark Morrison Reed, who I once heard here in a men's lecture. The central task of the religious community is to unveil the bonds that bind each to all. The religious community is essential, for alone our vision is too narrow to see all that must be seen, and our strength too limited to do all that must be done. Together, our vision widens and our strength is renewed. And now I invite you to say together the words of affirmation that bind this community in shared purpose. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek truth in love, and to help one another. I'm a big believer in the value of story for all ages. So today we're going to have a story, and it's by The Animals of Mossy Hollow by the Reverend Ken Sawyer, who was my predecessor in the Wayland congregation. All the animals in Mossy Hollow agreed it was a real nice place to live. The earth was steady, the air was fresh, and the sky was left to decide whether its gift that day should be wonderful sunshine or wonderful rain, both of which would make plants grow steady and strong and green and healthy. The animals thought this was pretty great all in all. Plants and rain and sun and earth, and air that smelled of lilacs in the spring, and all summer long like the wild roses in which the little ones made their home. So they decided they should have a time, at least every week, when they stopped complaining because sometimes the sun was too hot or the rain was too heavy, stopped worrying because the rose bush where they made their home was too thorny, or because this year the lilacs were not as flowery as they had been the year before or the year before, and just said, hey, did you see the sun, the rain, the roses, the lilacs, the life and love? So they decided they should find a way to remind themselves, after all, life was pretty nice, and they were lucky to be alive and to love and help each other and others. They knew it should be a thing they could do together every week or so, whatever else was going on, in the midst of good times and hard times. Some way of saying, yes, life is pretty nice, praise be. So they got together to find a way to celebrate. Life is good, thanks be for life. Great, said the monkeys. Let's remember life is good. We can get together every week and swing through the air on vines and hop on the ground and hoot. Great, said the alligators. Let's remember life is good. But that's not how you do it. We can get together every week and lie beside the lazy river in the hot basking sun without a care. Great, said the chickadees. Let's remember life is good. But that's not how you do it. We can get together every week and sit on a tree branch and sing, chickadee-dee-dee. Great, said the dogs. Let's remember life is good. But that's not how you do it. We can get together every week and carry tennis balls in our mouth and roll around on our backs. And the monkeys said, but that's not how you do it. Well, now they had to appoint a committee. An alligator, a monkey, a dog, and a chickadee, some old, some young, some in between, sat down and tried to figure out how all the animals could meet and remind themselves of the good things about life together. The monkey could see that the swinging on vines probably was not what the alligator would enjoy very much. But the group agreed, hopping around on the ground and hooting sounds okay, let's give it a try. The alligator could see that lazing about in the sun very long was probably going to make the monkeys impatient. But the group agreed, if it didn't go on too long, it sounds okay. Let's give it a try. The chickadee could see the dog was going to have a tough time joining them on the branch. But the group agreed, if everyone can stand or sit wherever they like, chirping sounds okay. Let's give it a try. And the dog could see no way was a chickadee going to be able to hold a tennis ball, even one, in their mouth. But the group agreed, rolling around on one's back sounds okay. Let's give it a try. And so they gave it a try, hopping and hooting and lazying and chirping and rolling around, and would you believe it? It really was okay. Oh sure, it wasn't exactly what any one of them would have chosen all by themselves. The dogs never did think the chirping was the best part of the gathering. The monkeys tried to enjoy being lazy in the sun, but they were always left a little edgy. The alligators felt a bit uncomfortable when it came to hopping, as did the chickadees when it came time to roll on their backs. But all in all, given how different animals are, just like people, the wonderful thing was every week they got together to remember the good things about life, as do we. As some of you have been warned, I like to start prayer with a deep breath to center us and also just to absorb the power of music. So join me in taking a deep breath in and out, and another in and out. Spirit of life and love, we pause on this day to notice the ways life is pretty nice. The bright yellow pansies beside the red brick sidewalk. The blue of a sunny sky above the verdant green of rain-soaked parks. For all that is good and beautiful, we give thanks. And in pausing, we know too the heartache of grief for the many losses life brings, the loss of health or mobility, the loss of dear friends and loved ones, the loss of how things used to be at home, at church, and the world at large. May we honor the presence of our grief, even as we seek to remain connected and comforted by all that remains and all that is yet possible. Amidst all that brings us joy and all the sorrow we hold, may we find a stillness within, a place of connection to the love and life that remains abundant within and around us all. Resting now in that stillness, may we feel that love that holds us all. Now is a time in a service set aside for sharing of joys and concerns. If you wish to speak, please come forward and take the microphone and add a stone to the jar. And I think of this as a shared time, both for those who are speaking, but also for all of us who are witnessing.
Hi everyone, I am a master's student in the opera department at the New England Conservatory of Music, and this Thursday at 8 p.m. in Burns Hall at NEC, I will be performing my graduating recital. So if you're interested in attending, I will be singing some Mozart. I'll be singing Strauss's Drei Ophelia Lieder, so that's based on the character Ophelia from Shakespeare's Hamlet. Those are her mad songs in the play. I'll be singing some Poulenc songs about World War II, mainly about the effects of the German occupation in France and kind of the effects of the destruction of war. And I'll be singing some Irish folk song arrangements by Benjamin Britten as well. So I think I have like a little something for everyone. Again, that's this Thursday, 8 p.m. at the New England Conservatory of Music in Burns Hall. I hope you can make it.
on, and let me see. Well, this is, I guess, is a concern. Will the person who left this in the narthex please raise their hands?
Thank you for the rescue.
Hello, everyone. Oh, I like this big one. I have a lot of joys this week. My boyfriend, he went into the doctor's this past Wednesday. He is still in his walking boot, but they said that he's basically good to stop using crutches now and start just walking, which is super exciting. Yeah. So that's a joy. I defended my thesis this past Thursday, and it was approved with no revisions. So, and then last night, I just had a dress rehearsal for my capstone performance, my capstone recital, which is coming this Thursday, the same exact day, at 9:15. So if you want to make a little journey over to New England Conservatory and then pop over to Boston Conservatory down the street, I'll be performing at 9:15 p.m. in the Zach Box at 8 Fenway. If you wanted to come to listen to some musical theater pieces, it's a joy for me and very exciting. The dress rehearsal I thought was going to be very stressful last night, and it turned out great. So that's even more joyous. Yes. So there we go.
And if you missed that, Alex is staying with us next year.
Good morning, I'm Grace. I'm a long-term member of this church, and I have two joys. The first one I will say, it is really a pleasure having members of the choir, the whole choir, participate in the life of the church in a way that has not always been the case. It really adds, it just adds an element of joy and ebullience every week. And the other joy is we are here, we are assembled like days of yore. There are people who haven't been here in years. This is wonderful. I feel we're at the beginning of a new era. I hope everybody feels that. And that brings me great, great joy. And I keep thinking of, what is it, the famous song between the Jets and the Sharks. Not quite the same meaning. but something's coming. But I think of it in a good term. And that just feels wonderful to see people and to know that we have a chance to really begin to build on something that I think has been a little tattered late for all sorts of reasons that we can't control. And anyway, I'm done. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kelsey Cowger, and I am. My family and I are visiting from the Unitarian Congregation of Charlottesville in Virginia, and I just wanted to say what a joy it is to be in this beautiful space and hear this beautiful music. We came up to see the opera Omar last night, and it's which is incredible, and it's just such a pleasure to be in a loving congregation like this. And thank you for welcoming us.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Mark Lustar. I'm a longtime member of this church. In addition to a number of other things that I do part-time, I'm also a newspaper reporter, and I just got back from spending a week in Ukraine reporting on NGOs that are working with internally displaced people in that country, Christian NGOs. And it was a deeply moving and deeply troubling experience, and especially as the news carries reports of increased fighting in that country, the number of displaced people will certainly grow, and many are struggling to provide basic needs for families and children in that country. And I just hope that we can keep that conflict in our minds, and the people who it affects especially, keep them in our hearts and prayers, and remember to support them in all the ways that we can. Thank you.
Maybe last one. I want to share my joy of this congregation and all that you have provided in resources to this church and to this congregation, to your colleagues and your congregants. I'm Mary Ellen Norman. I'm the assistant treasurer. I've been running the Canvas. Some of you may have seen my personal email this past week. And I just want to really celebrate you and celebrate the congregation for all that you put forward. And it's not always money. Sometimes it's really just showing up and being you. So if you want to send an email back and say, I would like to get involved in, I will forward that on to whoever I know is looking for people and volunteers, because this church lives on the lives and the joys and the celebrations of each other. And so I would like to echo Grace's sentiment that we're on a pinnacle, we're on a precipice that's actually really exciting. There is no fear here. And so I invite you and all those online, you can still hit that pledge button because money matters, but you can also email me back, and I will connect you within this church to create that community once again. So thank you very much.
I love the spirit of that sharing. Thank you. And I know there's so much more that you hold on your hearts and in your minds, both of great joy and concern. So I will add 2 stones for those. And now we are going to sing a hymn, 1058, Be Our Religion. It's a sweet, short hymn, so we are going to sing it twice. Thank you.
Good morning. It's nice to see so many folks in pews. This morning's sermon reading is a poem by Maggie Smith. It's called Good Bones. It was the BBC called it the official poem of 2016. And you'll have to excuse a few spicy words in it, but it makes a point. Good bones. Life is short, though I keep this from my children. Life is short, and I've shortened mine in 1,000 delicious, ill-advised ways. 1,000 deliciously ill-advised ways I'll keep from my children. The world is at least 50% terrible, and that's a conservative estimate. Though I keep this from my children. For every bird, there's a stone thrown at a bird. For every loved child, a child is broken, bagged, sunk in a lake. Life is short, and the world is at least half terrible. And for every kind stranger, there is one who would break you. Though I keep this from my children. I'm trying to sell them the world. Any decent realtor walking through a real shithole chirps on about good bones. This place could be beautiful, right? You could make this place beautiful. Thank you.
In many ways, life is pretty good. The sun finally comes out after a week of rain. The gardens of the city are glorious with spring blossoms. We smile to hear the happy sound of children at play in a park. And sometimes life does not feel particularly good. 55 years ago, where we now sit was in ruins. Just 5 weeks out from the fire on March 29th that destroyed all but the bell tower and that one wall of the church. I imagine that some preliminary cleanup of the ravaged site had begun. Worship services had continued nearby, and plans were soon underway to explore options for the future. Today, we gather within the walls, built from hopes and dreams born from a place of loss and chaos. The physical structure of First Church stands firm today. Okay, I might have heard that there's a leak or two and some carpet that needs replacing. That's okay. We all need some attention after 50 years. But perhaps after several years of ministerial transition, significant staff turnover, and a global pandemic thrown in, it might feel that a different kind of calamity has left the internal structures of First Church in some disarray. That's okay too. There has been a lot of turmoil and change. There has been a lot for those of you who love First Church to steward and sustain. And yet, just as First Church rebounded from the fire to its building 55 years ago, I believe that same resiliency can help this congregation move forward again. The proverbial bones of the place are good. As the poet Maggie Smith writes, this place could be beautiful, right? You could make this place beautiful. As I have listened this week, I have heard about leaks in the roof, committees that have dwindled, and places of conflict or need of clarity. Unlike the parent of Maggie Smith's poem, you have trusted me with the adult view of the whole of it, or most of it, I suspect. And amidst the list of items in need of attention, I have noticed again and again the love and devotion so many of you hold for this church. That love, that's the good bones. I know that many of you believe that too. And I also hear the weariness in many of your voices. I hear the grief for what you have lost through these hard years. I hear the longing for a more vibrant and sustainable future. Today lies between the fading past and a future not yet known. Church consultant Susan Beaumont describes such moments of uncertainty as a liminal time. Liminal comes from the Latin word limen, or threshold. Liminal spaces are threshold spaces, in between times when it is not yet clear what the future will be. In such times, Beaumont cautions against efforts to follow the traditional linear pattern of assessing the current state of affairs, envisioning the preferred future, and then planning how to move from point A to point B. In contrast to this linear approach, Beaumont suggests that liminal time requires us to adopt a learning posture of asking questions. She writes, "Learning in a liminal season isn't linear, it's cyclical. We revisit the same themes and challenges over and over each time from a slightly different vantage point. We learn things, we unlearn things, we relearn what we thought we have already mastered," end quote. Rather than sleek master plans declaring how to move forward, liminal times require questions, curiosity, and a willingness to learn and relearn. And I know that I still have much to learn about you as individuals, committees, and a congregation. And I heard your own questions about what First Church might look like in the future. What's next for First Church, for Unitarian Universalism, for religious life in the 21st century? In this liminal time, no one has clear answers. Instead, we are all gazing into a hazy future where patterns of the past can seem ill-fitting to the challenges we face today. And while the answers may not be entirely clear, religious researchers are pointing to relevant trends. As you're likely aware, the trends don't look great. For example, in the latest analysis of the Pew Research Center on the future of religion in America, the most likely prediction is that Christians could make up less than half of the US population within a few decades. To reach this forecast, they track trends of religious switching, which is to say the patterns of people changing religious affiliation, many from Christian to none. Unitarian Universalists are generally too small in number to be effectively tracked by Pew. It's true. But membership statistics on the Unitarian Universalist Association website for 1961 to 2020 suggest decline in UUism as well. According to the 2020 Widening the Circle of Concern report issued by the UUA, there were closer to 819 congregations in 2020, rather than the 1,000 UU congregations we often refer to. And while the numbers are not yet available online, the impact of the pandemic has stressed many congregations, and there are likely more congregations that have elected to merge and/or close. In face of decline, religious leaders and congregations are seeking ways to reverse or at least slow the loss. Uncertain about a path forward, it can be easy to look back to those times when, with more members, for ideas on how to fix today's problems. But today's world doesn't look like the world of yesterday. The Widening the Circle of Concern report also points to national demographic shifts towards more racial and ethnic diversity, including a rise in those who are multiracial. Increasingly, we do not live in monocultural contexts, which changes expectations about cultural competency. Additionally, Widening the Circle names the bleaker future that many younger generations face relative to those nearer retirement. Rising costs of education, student loans, housing, and childcare places significant financial concern on today's younger adults. And after decades of headlines linking religion with violence, anti-LGBTQ bigotry, sexual misconduct of religious leaders, and more, many have soured on the idea of religious affiliation at all. All of this is to say, there are some pretty stiff headwinds for religious congregations these days, especially those that do not address the shifting multicultural context, the challenges facing younger adults, and the negative press of religious life. But I, for one, still believe in church, which is to say that when I think of the world and what I know of people, we need places that help us to live meaningfully and well. Last summer in a worship service at the General Assembly of UUs, the Reverend Sean Neil Barron quipped, "My friends used to ask me, 'Why do you go to church?' After I became a minister, they stopped asking." But then Sean added, "But the thing is, I never did. Why do I go to church?" Continuing, Sean does not hold back in laying out the heartbreak and disappointment that he has witnessed at church. People misbehave in harmful and hurtful ways. People we care about leave. The music changes. We start to wonder if we should move on too. As he rather effectively lays out the challenges and conflicts of religious community, you start to wonder, wow, really? Why bother with church? Last fall, I was chatting with a couple who asked, "What made you want to be a minister?" In response, I shared with them how I grew up loving church, and after a period of theological searching, I found Unitarian Universalism where I felt I belonged. And Unitarian Universalism, I found both the multi-generational religious community that I longed for from my childhood experiences and the theological openness I now deeply valued. In other words, I wanted to belong to a religious community that would bring casseroles to people suffering loss and be okay questioning God. I wanted to belt out Christmas carols in a community that included 5-year-olds sitting next to 95-year-olds, even if I didn't believe in the virgin birth or identify as Christian anymore. I wanted a place to go and be with others in times of tragedy, when the planes crashed into the office towers or children died of gun violence. And I wanted to be in relationship with people who identify as Buddhist, Muslim, or Hindu without condemning them to eternal torment for being born in a different cultural context or to parents who pass down a different religious tradition. In short, I wanted a community where I could bring the all of me, my doubts and my curiosity, as well as my anger, my delights, and my heartbreaks. To me, religion is an essential part of being human. Amidst the flood of all that life brings, we need a way to navigate the complexity of choices in relationships. We need to be able to make sense of what is happening, or at least to not always feel alone as we encounter the inexplicable. Consciously or not, I believe we seek out places where we sense belonging and acceptance for who we are, in our beliefs and our brokenness, our aspirations and our imperfect humanity. Whether we call it religion or not, I believe we will all keep searching for meaning and for belonging, or suffer in loneliness and despair if we do not find it. And so when I think about what's next for First Church, the questions I bring are these. Why does sustaining First Church matter for the people of Back Bay and beyond? What resources does First Church have to foster communities of belonging for more and more people of different ages, cultural and religious backgrounds, and more? What might it mean for First Church to be a place of refuge and support for those struggling with despair, grief, or loneliness? for those facing injustice and inequity? And in what ways can First Church nurture spaces of celebration for all that is pretty nice and good about life? Religious practices and institutions may evolve and change, but the human need for connection and meaning remains. In essence, even the 1630 Covenant of First Church names both of these needs when it speaks to obedience to God, a source of meaning and purpose, as well as a commitment to walk together in mutual love and respect. If you choose to call me as your minister, my pledge to you is that I will walk with you in moments of heartbreak and grief, as well as in times of joyful news or shared experiences of beauty and laughter. Yes, belonging to a church can bring disappointments and conflicts, but it also can bring a deep sense of meaning and connection. When you show up for a Sunday service, a special event, or even a committee meeting or choir practice, doing so is always about more than that 1 hour or that one task. Showing up builds and sustains community for yourself and for all the others who engage in the life and work of First Church in all manner of ways. And this still matters in a world full of people searching for a place to belong. So may it be. Amen. I feel like Mary Helen should always do the call to offering. It is a time where you have a chance to practice giving back to this community. As you're able, I invite you to please give to the offering, either in person or online. Thank you.
If you'd like to support the work of this church with a financial donation, you may write out a check to First Church Boston and mail it to 66 Marlborough Street, 02116. You can also donate via text. Simply text the dollar amount, 5, 10, 20, etc. to 617-917-5610. You'll receive confirmation by email. Thank you.
know if our youngest member here reads. Please join me, if you wish, in saying the words to extinguish the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Our closing hymn is number 121, We'll Build a Land. And if you're here as a visitor, I think you're welcome to stay and there's food, but the whole process. So thank you for being here. Sustained by our connections to all that is holy, let us go and be beyond these walls, bringing more light and life, love and justice to our shared world. Amen.